Okay. Motion to call the meeting to order. Second. All in favor?
Aye. So, Mr. Chair, sent out in advance of the meeting the packet of information, which did two things. It condensed the number of offerings from that which was presented back in April, and then based on the input, added some additional options. In the case of the water, there's one additional option, which was basically a modification to W2, which had an across-the-board rate increase of 1.9%, and we looked at it just being a straight across the board at 2%. And then we added three new sewer rate options, which were all a modification of option S2, which had all the step rates increasing by 3%. And we looked at what would the result be based upon a lower rate of interest, dropping it by 15 basis points in each instance, going down to 2.85% across the board, 2.7 and 2.55. With that, I incorporated that under the scenarios, which that is summarized on page 15, which the lines that are bold are new scenarios based upon based upon either the new water option or one of the three sewer options. And it reflects what the annual bill would look like, as well as what the percentage change is in that annual bill from what the current rate structure is. I also did, for the committee's convenience, added those same impacts on the average Needham customer use based upon the most current data that we have from DEP, which says that the average Needham single family home is using 9,094 cubic feet of water in the course of the year. And just as the table is familiar shows them going minus below is what the annual impact would be of the different scenarios. And when you look at the scenario under 12,000 cubic feet and under 9,094 cubic feet a year, there's a slight variation in terms of which scenario has the lowest impact and which may have the highest impact, because of the way those structures are made. They can fall more heavily on a lower consumer or a higher consumer in terms of usage. It's not a very significant change, but notable that the highest change in the rates for the national average of 12,000 cubic feet is a 4.4% increase with the scenario 11 and scenario 54. That's on page 16 of the document. Whereas if you look at the consumer at 9,094 cubic feet, the impact of scenario 11 in scenario 54 is a 4.6% increase on the annual bill. The other information that I provided to the members from the prior is I had provided to you for both domestic water use and sewer use, the percentage of accounts that had billable volume in each of the steps. And what I've added in this is showing you the amount of billable volume our secondary water customers have, hence irrigation customers. What was most notable looking at the the 22 data to the 21 data and 20 data, and looking at irrigation use versus domestic water use, that the irrigation tends to be more people get into step 3 and step 4. They use a lot more water if they have an irrigation meter than they do with their domestic meter, or folks who don't have an irrigation meter and use their domestic meter for outdoor watering as well. So that's very telling. And hence one of the concerns about the volatility of relying upon irrigation is, one is, of course, if it's a wet season, that consumption could drop significantly because they don't need to use. And secondly, it could be more it's a higher rates on irrigation. It could drive a more conservation efforts on part of the users.
Feels should get water ban that if that were to hold.
Oh, that certainly could have an impact. It should not have to have a water restriction. But I'm thinking in the case of self-policing, either due to personal consciousness or economics. All 4 of those additional options do meet the requirements of reaching the our target range for revenue generation between 98.5 and 101%. And in the case of the sewer, they all, except for option labeled S2D, where the rates would all increase by 2.55%. All the other 3 new options do provide a slight surplus, and the 2.55% increase is de minimis $984 shortfall.
I have a question. Sorry, I think I might have asked this last time. On page 19, where the October to December 2022. So the sum of the secondary water irrigation is 162 million.
Yep.
And then the sum of the domestic is 143 million.
Yes.
So does that mean that we're using more for secondary water than we are for domestic?
In that particular year, yes. And that was the year that actually drove that irrigation, which was the last quarter of the calendar year, which determines our assessment from the MWRA. That's what drove the
2023 numbers.
Yes, the technically the fiscal 24 number, where we had that notable increase in the MWRA water assessment. And again, there's no clear indication that irrigation does drive our need for more water from the MWRA.
But it's also a function of where, so not the whole town doesn't get that water. It's only, right, Mike, isn't it? I thought it was only one part of the town that's hooked up to Mass Water.
No, that's where it comes in, but it goes everywhere.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, it goes through the whole entire system. Goes to the tanks, goes everywhere.
Does it? Oh, okay.
It blends.
So like in 2020, it's 167 million versus 154 million. Well, you know, it's still a big number.
2021 was where it was a wetter year. It was, well, there are 2 things that could relate to that. One is clearly it was a wetter year, and 2, a lot of people were at home then. And hence, you saw, although in both instances, they're both lower than the year after and the year before, both in domestic and irrigation.
And the average bill doesn't really account for that.
No, the average bill looks at domestic use
Yeah.
because not every community in the MWRA district, which is what we're comparing ourselves to, have second meters and the billing structures are different. So everything is based upon the domestic water meter usage and hence.
No, so it's the seasonality. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, page 19.
Yep.
The secondary water, January through March residential.
Yep.
The 13.7 million. Why is it so much lower than the others?
It's basically, this is the water usage that's happening during the late fall and winter months.
Okay, so this is season.
Yes,
Okay.
that is,
Okay.
hence why I'm showing the October to December. I show the October to December because those bills are actually capturing the summer watering.
Well, let's say it's building arrears.
Yes.
So, yeah. So it's
That's why the numbers
yeah.
are so much larger.
Yes.
Intuitively, though, people cut back in Q4 on watering lawns.
Well, remember, we're billing, like the bill in October is representing water that people were using in June and July and August, and we bill them in September. So,
I didn't.
yes,
Thank you.
it's always in the rear,
Thank you.
but it is the quarter that water usage is generally the highest, in terms of being billed, but the usage is happening during the summer months.
We're supposed to take away scenarios, not put new scenarios on the table.
But really the factor for the committee is, and certainly the rate of increase is, even with the additional scenarios, is smaller than all the scenarios the committee was looking at back in April. What the fact that you're looking at, to the fact that it switches, do you look at a rate structure? When you're looking at the rate structure, you're seeing that in the low end consumers pay more on a percentage basis on some scenarios than those at 12,000 in vice versa. So that's really one of the distinct differences that you're that one may be considering in making a recommendation. I know there was expressed that they didn't want folks didn't want to disproportionately have an impact on the consumers that generally use less water. I know that was something that was expressed, that they shouldn't have a disproportionate higher percentage increase than, let's say, those who are using more. And that's the other reason I include the second chart so you can get a better sense of what that actually equates to.
If you know, at the top of your head, for like step one, for instance, in general sense, how when Coca-Cola was like pedal to the metal, the plant, how large was the subsidy back then?
Oh, the subsidy, basically everybody at step 2, 3, everybody being billed in step 1, step 2, and step 3 were paying less than cost. So, and that was true in water, but more importantly, it was true in sewer, which was a major, the Coca-Cola contribution on that side was even more notable in terms of the subsidy for the other ratepayers.
I guess one of my first questions is, do we want to consider, given that current water rate structure has us at a shortfall, what was the threshold, 98.5?
We have no less than 98.5 and no more than 101.5.
Okay, so so current water structure is 98.1, so it's less than the threshold. And yet it's showing up in a number of scenarios, right?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, why, and it's a question that maybe why would we consider any option with the current restructure?
Well, it depends on where you think Matt's water consumption will be this year and the following year. That's really.
That's why you're referring to MW.
Yeah. I call that. I mean, it's 40. It's like basically almost, it's 42% of like the 3-year projection. On the sewer, it's like 66%. So this is all really driven by how much we get from the end of it, right? It's pretty warm today, right? And
Yeah,
it's got the sprinklers going. It's not going to rain for like another week.
yeah.
It's only May. Right, so it could go further up. So, but I mean, that's a gamble, right? So I don't, it's probably not a good thing to do.
And when the weather's the fools errand.
Yeah. Well, NWA, I think, what's their plan to have, what's Joe Farol's like campaign slogan, 4.8% or something?
Yeah, not to exceed 4% in terms of growth.
Yeah.
Budget.
Right, so they're gonna go up 4%. That's what the advisory board says. So that's the aggregate, right? But then the way it works is that we could build a year in arrears, and then we're a percentage of what everybody else is doing. So it's a zero-sum game. I mean, we could go up, but if somebody else goes up more than we do on a percentage basis, then we're, it sucks. Right? And so that's the challenge here. So
I don't like the current rate structure. It's just more likely to lead to higher probability of a rate shock, like next year,
Yeah.
year after, where you're gonna have to do a big one. It's just deferring, like typically, like to see it just slow and low.
Slow increases.
Yeah, exactly. Consistency.
And not kicking the can down the road. I think that's kind of guided us over the years, gradual increases.
Yes.
yeah, I mean, if you strip out all the other expenses, so in aggregate over the annualized change over 3 years is 5.6%. 42% of that is the Mass water piece, right? So then that means that it's like 3.2% annualized.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do it in my head. So I know.
Looking, if you were to strip out the current water structure, then effectively you're looking at the lowest cost impact would be scenario 36 on page 15, which is taking water option 6 and sewer option 7, which would result in 0.8% increase. But if you turn over, and then if you turn to page 17, that same scenario 36, you're looking at for a consumer at 9,094 cubic feet, you're looking at an annual increase of 0.3%.
So I guess I have 2 questions. One for the committee is, are there any of the new options that anyone considers, too far of a reach and that we would not want to consider.
I don't like 7.
Yeah, 5% is pretty steep. Yeah, great.
Step 4, 10%.
And then what about, okay, so 7. Okay, 7 was one from 2 weeks ago that we wanted to keep, but now we want to move it out. Okay, I'm good with that. And then any of the new options, W2B, S2B, S2C, S2D.
Excuse me, so that was at 7S or
Yes,
7W that you
S7,
wanted to get rid of?
S7.
S7, okay.
So with the chairman's question there, the least expensive scenario to the ratepayer at 12,000 cubic feet would be scenario option 51, which is W6, and option 2SP. And that would be an annual increase of 2.2%.
Does that get us to the 98 plus?
Yeah. Yes.
W6.
2% is quite reasonable.
And it just admits step 1, right?
Effectively, yes, and that's why the impact on the step 1 is 2.1% under that same scenario for the lower end consumer, and that's just because they're not using it. That customer is not reaching step 3, and under the water scenario W6, we're raising only steps 2, 3, and 4 by 2%, but not touching step 1.
I must have didn't notice. I was on Zoom in the last meeting, so I don't think I heard it. But what's the objective with omitting step 1 again? Can someone just explain to me? Because volumetrically, it's still a major chunk of the customer base on aggregate.
Yes, one of the reasons you may want to consider that is if you're trying to incentivize. There are 2 ways of looking at it. One, incentivize people to try to reduce their consumption, in rewarding those who are using the least amount of water by not going up on their use rate at step 1. The other factor is it's viewed anecdotally. We don't have factual evidence to back that up, but anecdotally it's suggested that the households that are using water use only at step 1 tend to be elderly, who generally don't have as much disposable income as those who would be using water. So that's one of the reasons one would consider that.
Thanks.
At a 2% increase, how close are we coming to covering up costs?
And it works for the model that we have. Once again, we've been very good about containing growth and expenses, and but we would be looking at increases in the 2 to 3% range in the next coming years as well. The driver. The driver is, of course, how much more water we're purchasing from the MWRA. To the point that John was raising earlier, that's really that of any variable within the water structure, that is the greatest variable. The sewer, of course, we're always getting billed from the MWRA. And that is the largest portion of our overall sewer cost operation. So it's more expensive, it's more assurance that the percentage increase necessary will be greater, but it has more predictability since the MWRA's goal is not to be more than 4% a year.
And it's a much larger percentage of our monthly bills than sewer.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, 51, 48, 58 all seem very similar. I think it's palatable. So I guess the question I was going to ask you is, do you have a recommendation for us?
The one recommendation would have been, but the committee already took it off, is you couldn't keep the current structure. That was apparent because all you're inevitably doing is going to make the following year more problematic.
But you weren't advocating that, though, were you?
No, I was not, but certainly I want to see the committee got it.
Yeah.
So the emphasis, I think, the cost increases this year has been driven overall by the entire community, and certainly domestic and sewer water. The irrigation is definitely having an impact. So our rate structure that is putting some of the cost increase on the irrigation rate is also necessary. So I would be focusing on anything that ensures that the water rates were increasing. And so with that, my recommendation would be that W2 makes the most sense for water. Makes most sense for water because that's ensuring that all the steps 1 through 4, irrigation and domestic, in taking a chance that the irrigation might normalize, and therefore we're not looking at a greater of an increase in 25.
And we would advocate more for W2 than W2B. I know it's kind of incidental with the, but any reason? Or?
The reason why I would suggest that is because on the case of the sewer, I think we have to lean to the higher percentage increase.
Okay.
I do think that the sewer option S2 all steps at 3%, because there's nothing to suggest that there's any of the costs current that we know for a fact are going to be less in fiscal 25 compared to what they're doing in fiscal 24. So that meaning that we would probably be looking at the same rate increase in sewer in 25, but there's a chance the water rate increase might be slightly higher or it might be slightly lower in 25. So that's a long way of saying W2. Yes.
So it's very egalitarian, the fact that it's just across the board.
Which scenario was that? Could you curious to?
48.
48.
Yeah. Is it 48?
It's S2B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's scenario 7 on page 16, which is a 2.6% increase on the average. And it's on page 18, as someone mentioned, scenario 7, a 2.6% increase.
Which on the sewer side, the other S2 options, B, C, and D, what would you view as the intrinsic risks of those options as opposed to, so lower below 3%, still an increase, but like for next year and the year after?
I'm just thinking that, again, I don't see anything that's going to lower the rate of increase in the sewer. Because again, the greatest part of the expense is the MWRA assessment. And I don't see any significant variable that would cause that to decline. The other factor is we're still having significant sewer capital investment, and our debt service expenses are going to be climbing in the out years. So that's another variable that's going to cause higher costs in the sewer, on the sewer operation than on the water. So for the long-term smoothing out effect, I think a 3% increase now will make it more sustainable to keep sewer rate increases in the 3% range in the next 2 to 3 years at least. Whereas if we went with a lower rate now, I think there would be looking at 4% increase in sewer, minimally looking in 25 and 26. And there's always a chance that could even be higher, because another factor that's been driving the sewer assessments is Boston, for whatever reason, their assessment in sewer has moderated significantly, and Boston's such a major contributor to covering the cost of the MWRA. That's spreading out to all of us.
Commercial occupancy.
Yeah, and yes, it could be that.
Which is not
Certainly
bad,
could be.
right?
Could be that.
Right in Boston.
But it seems like it's steady, it's actually a lot increase in this lower.
His name's still in all the documentation.
It is lower use.
Boston's such a big entity, it consumes so much, it consumes ripple effect on the other.
They're so large of a portion that they were paying of the total assessment that's with 2-3% decline in their portion of the expense is much more notable to the rest.
Yeah, and the rest of us. Yeah, when I used to cover them, they always put like the top 10 customers in Boston, Water Two is on there by far. Number one.
That Boston is effect on the district is what Coca-Cola's effect was on.
That debt scenario you were just talking about, is that due to a higher interest rate environment, or is there a major capital thing scheduled for
Needham?
Yeah.
It's just that we have some major sewer lines and pump station and upgrades that need to be done. We have some lines that are 65 years old and they need to be redone. We have one right around 128.
Yeah.
but that's been serviced by debt, new debt?
That will have to be done, yes. It's just too much to be absorbed by cash. We thankfully do some of the design work and stuff with opera funds. So it's not going to be as dramatic, but it's still going to be very costly project. So we're going to have to amortize the debt over 25 years. But we had been declining our debt service budget, which was in excess to $1 million a year, and now we're at the $600,000 range. So we're going to be pitching back up towards it. So for all those variable reasons in sewer, I think in order to have moderation for customers, 3%.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Just kind of go around and get some of the thoughts or opinions.
So we're talking about
out of the different scenarios, do any of them strike you as
S2 and then
yeah, so Dave's recommended, well, one Dave, I don't know if I can say you recommend it, but one of the options W2 S2 combination.
Arrow 7.
Scenario 7.
Yeah, I came in thinking W2B and S2B. There's a lower water increase.
Actually, a little higher. 10 basis points higher.
That's
1.9 against.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I'm looking at the wrong line. Yeah, you're right, yeah. And then S2B,
Okay, so the difference between
it's pretty de minimis.
Yeah.
I mean, the difference is very small, and you know, the modeling. I'm really hung up on sort of like, just the model. So this, yeah, I mean, I think that's, either way, I would be fine with it, with just having the twos, the plain twos, and either of them.
Isn't that really your concern that you voiced about the mass water?
Well, I'm really hung up on the modeling,
Okay.
so, so like on this thing, I think it would be nice underneath the MWRA to have like the related volume and percentage of total usage, and then the second water meter component, like when we say that this is the average person uses, it's just a metric, right? But you don't, like, if you have the second water, that the actual, like, average bill is actually very different, right? From like our personal consumption.
Right, then
Yeah.
the difficulty is system we have, I can't
Get to that.
I can't get to that data.
Right.
And that's problematic, and clearly the rain. It would suggest that those, and looking at some assumptions, individuals with irrigation meters for water usage is probably higher, but the irrigation meter doesn't incur sewer
Sure,
charges.
no, and
So that
yeah.
comes down.
Yeah, and then sort of the whole price, regardless of water conservation, what's the price sensitivity of second water meters? Now, just for full disclosure, I have a second water meter, right? And so the way I think about it is replacement cost, right? So the cost of replacing a very small thing is greater than the cost of watering it, basically. So then, you know, there's that whole price sensitivity that works. Anyway,
It's important to keep in mind that with MWRA, consumption is not the only thing that's driving their increases. It's employee pensions, debt.
yeah,
service,
yeah,
a lot
I know,
of-
I've done the analysis, right? But that's what I'm saying, it's like, it's 40, on the water side, it's 42% of the average, the 3-year average, right? So, and the 3-year average growth is 5.6%. Mass water is 8.8%, that's really driven by the 1-year thing, so, you know, everything else is, you know, basically, the only thing that's less than 5% is the.
Yeah.
Would be the
Indirect
debt
cost,
service.
Indirect cost, yeah, indirect cost,
Okay.
anyway.
Matt?
I was thinking with, originally I was a little torn with step one, because we kind of talked about the people that might be impacted in step one, but what you're saying, basically, there's really not a way to quantify that. We don't have any data to say it's gonna affect this particular segment of our.
We don't know who.
Right.
We have a sense that the percentage of people that are being billed only at step one, which you look back at those tables at the back. You know, in domestic water use. If you're looking at page 20 and looking just at the October through December of 2022, 98.1% of all the customers were in step one, and 89.4% of the customers were had some billable volume at step two. So you're looking at approximately 800 households that were only in step one.
Right. I think, and where my head was at with it was, and Harold, you kind of brought this up last time too, was, you know, about not necessarily hitting irrigation unfairly or harder. You know, when you look at W2 and S2, it just seems the fairest it's kind of going across the board. So,
I don't just, I wouldn't say it, I don't think about it in terms of like what's fair or unfair about it. It's more like I view it more in terms of risk. I
right,
feel like putting a lot on irrigation adds more risk to the rate
with
structure.
the, yeah, weather variables.
Yeah.
we Talked about, but it just seems like, you know, that's kind of where my head would be leaning, just because it's kind of an overall, it makes sense. I think of it as fairness on my side of it, but it's just because it's just kind of a level thing.
You actually think people that had irrigation systems would stop or cut back on water in their lawns because of this increase at that level?
No,
I don't think so.
no.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what you're talking about in the risk.
Oh, if it's a very heavy rain summer, or if there's a water ban, that they could lead to tremendous volatility.
If it rains, you don't have to water your lawn, but you have to cook,
Exactly.
right? And yeah, so,
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, I'm not referring to it. Sorry.
No, I was just
Yeah.
clear. Thanks
No,
for
not the
clearing
red
it up.
level. I apologize.
No, don't be silly. I just was wondering what
Yeah.
you were identifying.
There are a lot of exogenous factors.
Okay, so it sounds like that you could go either way, W2B, S2B.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it's marginal. It's like, yeah,
It's so,
they're so close.
Yeah.
It just depends if you want to head a little more on that or not.
okay. Tom, what do you,
I'm S2 as 3% and back to the W2 or 2B around 1.9% across the board. I think spreading it out the rest everywhere is the way to go.
what do you?
Yeah, so I think I tipped my hand when I spoke at the last meeting, W2 and S2. Although, initially until Dave actually, I was for scenario 48, W2 and S2D below 2.55%. But what you said in terms of the soundness of just S2 makes sense. So I stand by my original out of turn comments from the last meeting.
Okay, so that's progress. Sounds like maybe narrowed down to 2 scenarios.
The scenarios are basically the same. We're just talking about the amount, right?
Yeah, so 56 and
7 and basically 56 are trying to do a combo of that one way or another.
756.
Basically, you're that's paying $2.28 a year.
Yeah, it's funny because it's I guess what the confusing part was, like, when we changed it to the Bs, one went down and one went up, right?
That's
Yeah.
correct. And that was based on the feedback from the
Sure.
committee that I did that.
So the real one would, so is there a scenario that's W2B or which scenario I should say is W2B and S2?
Yes, there is W2B.
52.
And then just S2.
Yes, 52.
52.
Which is basically scenario 52 is basically 12% more than scenario 7.
So it's just more or less we want to.
And it's really messaging at this point.
Right.
We think like messaging between 1.9% and 2%.
Yes, that's, yeah. You know, it's the automobile sale, everything 998 or 9.
Good years, you're right.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, for the lower end consumer, scenario 7 and scenario 52 have the exact same fiscal impact on the customer. It'd be a $34.51 increase. Whereas in the case of the 12,000 cubic feet customer, again, it's 12 cents, but it is a little more.
Well, typically, we want to give the board a few options. We want to give them no more than 3.
Oh, correct.
Right. So, I mean,
and usually no more than 3, and usually is a recommendation of this is the primary one. But
yeah,
they have different options.
So if we, and again, I don't want to rush people along, but if we want to consider the 3 options as 56, 7, and then 52. And I don't think that any of us have a super strong opinion on any of those, but maybe make, 56 the primary. Well, let me make sure I'm saying that right. Make 7 primary from an optics standpoint, but there's really not enough of a significant differentiation between 7 and 56 for us.
But you said 52, it was better for the low?
It was no additional cost. That both models result in the same amount of increase, both on a dollar basis and a percentage basis.
From 7 to 50.
If you're for a customer at 9,094 cubic feet, scenario 7 generates a bill that's $34.51 more for the entire year. Under scenario 52, it generates a bill that is $34.51 more per year, the exact same dollar amount. Whereas at 12,000 cubic feet, scenario 7 generates a bill that's $46.20 more for the entire year. But scenario 52 generates a bill that's $46.32.
So
It's only $12.
So with 52, I have a little bit of an issue because W2B, I'll say it again, that's a higher rate. That's 2% instead of 1.9. Is anyone, what about scenario 46? Which would be 1.9 on the water and then 2.85. That's 2.85.
Yeah, RV would be
46. It's kind of like a wash, and 7 as opposed to 52. You might as well go with 7 then because it's 1.9 on the water as opposed to 2. You know what I mean? No pun intended.
Well, let me. I was just going to add, again, we have the 25th blocked for another meeting. So another option is if we want to kind of digest this and come back, we can do that. Or kind of proceed with laying out 3 options.
I think we have to do 3 options. Over the years, you give a recommendation, we give a backup, and they trust that the committee has done the work.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I don't know if you need 3 options.
No.
Right, also, what is your recommendation?
No, I guess my suggestion is I don't want the committee to feel pressure to make a decision today. These are the three options. This is our recommendation. If we want to take, time to think about it and come back. If we feel like we're, close enough where we can give the three options with the recommendation. I feel like I'm close enough, but I don't know.
What's your recommendation?
I think for me, the difference is between 56 and 7 are, just so insignificant. I would probably, from the optics standpoint, lean towards W2S2, your 1.9 other than, instead of 10. But I don't know how sound that really is. So I would go to the board and say, 7 is number 1, 56 is number 2, and then maybe if we want to just have a little bit more discussion around 52 and 46. Matt, who was it that raised 46?
I didn't.
Yeah.
So 46 would be 1.9 on the water, 2.85 in the sewer.
Yeah.
And 52 would be 2 on the water and 3 on the sewer, so a little bit higher. So in terms of making a case or telling it, so to speak, my personal thing, I think 46 might be an easier one to.
Because of the optics on the sewer, right?
No, the water, because compared to 7, starting out with 7, 1.9 to 2, for some people that still might be
46 doesn't that give you the same?
I'm sorry, I was comparing 7 and 52.
When you talk about, I get what you're saying, but originally on 46 is basically you got the best optics because it's the B for the sewer and the original W.
Yeah.
So that would be, and I agree about 7 with you. I just think that seems to make the most sense as a primary recommendation. But if you wanted the call it the better optic option would be the 46, because basically you're just taking the original lower rate of W2 and then the revised lower rate of S2P. Because really 7 and 52 are, it's
Very
you
close.
just kind of pick one, which one you want to do, So,
I think by human nature, people will just fall to the lower number. Yeah, 7.
and the 7 you can say, it's probably better physically, but and then 46 is just kind of the stack up. But we can obviously come back and
So 7, 46, 56.
yeah.
Okay.
And so just so I'm understand, so like for lack of a better term, 7A, 46B, 56 choice C, like is that kind of what you're thinking? Okay,
Yeah.
that's where I'm at then. Okay.
Tom, Harold, you're both.
Yep.
They're good with that.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. We move on. Do we need to accept the minutes from
Yes, you do.
somebody? Want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. A superintendent update.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
A quick update. The committee. So we continue our hydrant and unidirectional flow water main flushing. Looks like we had initially anticipated being done May 30th. Looks like things go according to plan and we don't have any bad weather. We'll be done, we think, on the 18th. So that's good. And that continues 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Monday through Thursday as normal. Restoration, final paving cleanup being coordinated and scheduled with the contractor and the DPW and engineering division for the 16-inch water main project that took place on Central and Mark Tree Road. They're also looking at the bigger picture there. Mark Tree between Great Plain Ave and Central is looking to eventually get road reconstruction in there and sidewalks. So they're coordinating both activities. So that's ongoing. Lake Drive sewer pump station, the contractor was going to be in earlier in May, but he got held up on another job for a few weeks. So anticipating it being in late May, early June at this point. As we discussed before, the Route 128, I-95 sewer interceptor replacement rehabilitation design and engineering is still in process. We're moving forward with design on that and working through that. We also have paid engineering assisting us with some of the project management with engineering on that one. Rosemary Street 16-inch water main project just had a pre-construction meeting we held last week. So they're looking to get scheduled and start there. If not next week, maybe by early June. And that's just a small section of 15-inch water main as stated that was between Hillside Ave and Tillotson Road. So that way we can eliminate that piece of water main that's currently below Rosemary Lake. MWRA tunnel program. As I stated before, we were supposed to have a meeting May 3rd, I believe it was, and the MWRA canceled that one. So they haven't rescheduled the second meeting for that tunnel program yet, but they will be because the one they canceled on the 3rd. They're also developing a web page specific for Needham, so people can go on that website and they'll have specifics for Needham there. So we're looking to get in touch with them and hopefully see when they're going to reschedule that second meeting. So staffing update, we've hired an outside, we hired an employee from the outside. He's going to be a heavy equipment operator for us in the sewer and drain division. So I have filled one role, but I had two other roles with internal candidates that got promoted and moved up. So I got back to the local stage. So I'm still down the running cycle. Yeah. Still down, I think I'm at 5 anyway. So anyhow, we're trying to move ahead here with that. And our town hired contractor, A.D. Paolini, continues the water service renewals throughout town in various locations, like Goosex, lead-lined water services that we're removing. We don't have a lot of them. We're actually in really good shape. So we're preparing for the new lead copper rule requirements that the EPA put upon us with DEP, and that starts October of 2024. So that's the current update.
Were we working on the getting a store schedule or?
Yeah, you guys whenever we can get a date.
Yeah, that is actually on the agenda in terms of availability to you all.
It's like a early.
Yeah, just in case there's no hiring. Yeah, right.
I guess what times of day are most or week most of the
Bottom line is the guys work 7 to 3. Okay, I should say the staff work 7 to 3.
Okay.
So like to do it during those hours.
Okay.
If that's at all possible. So Usually afternoons are usually a little better.
Okay.
We'll say. Because they've gone through most of what they have to do in the morning, get everything ready.
And logistically, so where would it take place?
Yeah, we could look at Resby
Everything Reservoir B, and then over to the St. Mary's Water
pump station and then
And
the
then
charge
we'll
room.
go over the top of the. pump
Yeah,
station.
no problem.
Yeah,
Say enough about it. The time you get there, you get your tour, you ask your questions, it's probably about 2 hours anyway.
You're gonna use, what's it called, Doodle, or what's the new thing that?
Doodle was one, yes.
Yeah,
Yes, and I missed it, and then I included all the dates, in one of the emails, and then we forgot to take action on it.
well, I missed that.
Yeah, you had all the dates in there.
I didn't see the dates, but for what it's worth, 5 days for the best image for them.
All right, so Fridays, well, starting summer hours.
In 2 weeks,
In
yeah.
2 weeks, so
What
we're
is
not
summer?
30 on those. Everybody leave.
Oh,
But
everybody
we're
leaves.
extra hours. Monday, Thursday.
Question would be, would a Tuesday, they're working till.
That's extended hours.
Yes,
Yeah.
how late are they working until?
Tuesdays work, right?
No, they do 6:30 to 3,
Yeah,
and then they do till 12:30 on Friday, so they don't do the long Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Never mind.
we do, but they don't.
Okay. Okay. So,
The Tuesday afternoons?
I was going in a different direction, which apparently isn't gonna work. I thought that would work for everybody.
So Friday morning would make the most sense or not?
Friday morning would be fine.
But Harold, you were just about a Friday. I know sometimes things settle down towards the end of the week.
Yeah, Fridays. With all due respect, don't plan around me. I mean, I've actually been on quite a few of these types of tours in my career, so no offense, it's okay if if like a Tuesday or Wednesday works for everyone else, take it.
When do summer hours start?
Next,
May 22.
yeah,
Also, like May 19th is the last Friday available.
Right.
Next Friday.
Yeah. Those May 26th, that's May, that's the Friday leading into the Memorial Day weekend. If any of you have flexibility that Friday morning.
I do not, but yeah, I hate to have you do it because like the next 30 days is just like a train wreck for me, but the travel.
We can certainly do it in June. It's a rush to do it.
Oh, rush.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the next time that sounds terrible, but like June 23rd is like the next Friday actually with anything open.
Let's, June 23rd.
That's, yeah, and again, apologize, that's just the first Friday that I have that.
yeah, that should be fine. I'm here Monday through Friday.
10 o'clock then?
Harold?
Tentatively, yes.
Okay. John?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
With the water.
In fact, you could probably schedule your interview for the committee vacancy, and they'll be required to do the.
We have another vacancy.
Yeah, Tom announced that he's stepping down.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Do we have any candidates or?
That I don't know.
All right.
So do we need to meet on the 25th?
I think not unless somebody sleeps on it and feels differently. All right.
The only thing I would ask is if we could just plan on quick, if it works for all of you, a quick 10-minute meeting before the public hearing, which is on June 6th. I apologize.
June 13th.
Thank you. Yeah, I just misspoke. At 5:45.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. And one just approved, and two, both the minutes of this meeting.
Okay.
And then attend the public hearing.
So do we want to just, and that can be remote?
It can be, yes, it can be remote.
So do we want to just stick with the 25th?
What are we gonna do on the 25th?
Would that replace having meeting before?
I was on the basis that
Oh.
you're not meeting on the 25th.
Do the
Yeah.
13th in order.
So we just need to meet before the 13th in order to approve the minutes of this.
Well, that's a convenience of meeting, but the real purpose is because you're going to be going in and meet with the select board on
Okay,
to discuss the committee's recommendations.
okay.
It's not necessary, but
Yeah,
nice thing to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're waiting until next year to approve the minutes.
right.
I'm just planning on attending, so I'll be there.
So so we'll just plan on.
Yeah, 5:45. Oh, no.
Sorry.
13th.
June 13th at 5:45, because
Oh,
the
so-
hearing will be at 6 p.m.
Gotcha.
In this room though at 5:45?
In this room at 5:45.
Gotcha, okay. Makes perfect sense.
We had 6 p.m. on the calendar, but that was.
But that's when the public hearing will
Public hearing,
start, but
gotcha.
you would meet
Okay.
15 minutes before.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion here.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
And
Trying to get these decisions.
yeah.
That's good.
And I'll have an advance copy of the write-up that I provide to the select board out to you all before the weekend. Public hearing.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good rest of your week, after weekends. Mark?
I'm well.
You stop recording?
I'll do that. Yep.
Wherever you want, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
No problem.